You know what society does to people who choose solitude? There's a specific kind of punishment reserved for those who find peace in their own company. And it's not the obvious kind. It's far more insidious than that. Picture this. Someone stops posting on social media. No stories, no updates, just quiet. Within days, the texts start rolling in. Are you okay? Haven't seen you online? Just checking in. They respond honestly. They're fine, just enjoying privacy. And here's what happens next. The invitations stop coming, not all at once, but slowly. The silence on their phone isn't about conflict, it's punishment disguised as natural drift. Or watch this pattern. Someone declines weekend plans once, twice, 3 times. They're genuinely content spending time alone, but by the 3rd decline, something shifts. The invitations stop, but the conversation about them doesn't. Behind their back, friends gather to express concern. Do you think they're depressed? Should we say something? Their happiness alone gets diagnosed as a problem requiring intervention. These aren't isolated incidents. This is systematic enforcement. Your choice to be alone and content triggers a specific social response, one designed to look like care while functioning as control. Because here's what nobody tells you. Society doesn't just dislike loners, it punishes them. Through exclusion, disguised as concern, through interrogation, framed as caring, through pathologizing what threatens the entire social contract. The punishment operates through a brilliant disguise. No one says, "We're excluding you because you won't perform sociability on our terms." Instead, they say, "We're worried about you." They frame exile as intervention. Social rejection becomes concern. The language of care transforms into a weapon of conformity, and you're left defending your peace like it's a crime. Watch how this actually works in practice. They ask if you're okay, but they're not listening for your answer. They're listening for confirmation of what they've already decided. If you say you're happy, that becomes evidence of denial. If you say you're content, that becomes concerning. Your actual state of being doesn't matter. What matters is bringing you back in line. The concern isn't about you, it's about their discomfort with your choice. And that discomfort gets repackaged as care for your well-being, when really it's enforcement of their expectations. Here's what they're actually doing. Conducting an audit. Every "Are you okay?" isn't genuine concern. It's a test. They're checking whether your aloneness is temporary and understandable or permanent and threatening. Because temporary aloneness they can accept. Going through something difficult, recovering from heartbreak, dealing with work stress, these are approved reasons for solitude. But permanent contentment in your own company? That's different. That's dangerous. Because if your solitude has no expiration date, if you're not working toward rejoining the social collective, if you've actually discovered peace in being alone, then you're not just choosing differently. You're revealing that their way isn't the only way. You're proving that the constant social engagement they've built their entire identity around isn't necessary for happiness. And that truth is intolerable to them. So the audit continues. They keep checking, they keep testing, waiting for you to break, to admit you were wrong, to come back to the fold. Because if it's permanent, if you're actually happy without constant social engagement, you become a problem. Not to yourself, to them. Your contentment alone contradicts everything they've built their lives around. Think about what your peace in solitude actually means for them. It means all those exhausting social obligations they fulfill might be optional. It means the weekend plans they dread might not be necessary. It means the group chats that drain them, the birthday parties they force themselves to attend, the networking events they suffer through. All of it might be choices they're making, not requirements for a good life. Your existence as a happy loner is a mirror reflecting their own potential freedom, and they can't stand looking at it. So instead of examining their own exhaustion, instead of questioning why they're maintaining connections that don't fulfill them, they turn on you. They make you the problem, because that's easier than admitting they might be choosing their own unhappiness. Psychologists call this social camouflage, the performance people learn to make their solitude look acceptable. You learn to have excuses ready. I'm just busy right now. Things have been hectic. Anything but the truth. You prefer it this way. You develop an entire vocabulary of acceptable reasons for being alone. Work deadlines, family obligations, health issues, financial constraints. Any explanation that frames your solitude as temporary, as circumstantial, as something you'd change if you could. Because the moment you admit you choose this, the moment you reveal that you're alone by preference rather than by unfortunate circumstance, the tone shifts. Suddenly, you're not someone going through a rough patch who needs support. You're someone who's rejecting the social contract, and that makes you threatening. So, you learn to lie. Not dramatic lies, just small omissions. You don't correct them when they assume you're lonely. You don't push back when they suggest you need to put yourself out there more. You nod and smile and let them believe your solitude is something you're working to fix, when the truth is, you're working to protect it. But here's where it gets darker. The punishment escalates when you refuse to perform that camouflage. When you stop making excuses and simply exist in your preference for solitude, that's when the real enforcement begins. Because as long as you were apologizing for it, as long as you were treating your aloneness like a problem you were trying to solve, they could be patient with you. They could frame themselves as supportive friends waiting for you to heal. But when you stop apologizing, when you make it clear that this isn't a phase or a problem but simply who you are, that's when they show you what the punishment really looks like. The invitations don't just slow down, they stop entirely. The concerned check-ins become accusations. You've changed. You're not the person we thought you were. As if the person you've always been, the one who's finally stopped pretending, is somehow a betrayal of who they needed you to be. And maybe it is. Maybe your refusal to keep performing is exactly that, a betrayal of the role they assigned you in their social structure. But that's not your fault. That's not your problem to fix. They start talking about you in therapy language, isolating, withdrawing, concerning patterns. Your choice gets medicalized, pathologized, turned into symptoms of something wrong rather than expressions of something right. Listen to the language they use. You're not preferring solitude, you're isolating. You're not setting boundaries, you're pushing people away. You're not choosing peace, you're avoiding connection. Every word is carefully selected to frame your autonomy as pathology, and this isn't accidental. This is how social control maintains itself, by medicalizing deviation, by taking what threatens the collective and reframing it as individual dysfunction. Your contentment becomes concerning. Your boundaries become walls. Your peace becomes something that needs intervention. And the most insidious part? They convince themselves they're helping you. They genuinely believe that by pathologizing your choices, by treating your happiness as a symptom, by refusing to accept that you might actually know what you need, they're being good friends. They're showing they care. When really, they're just enforcing conformity with a therapeutic vocabulary. And this is where everyone misses the point. They're not concerned about your well-being. They're concerned about what your happiness reveals about their exhaustion. Your peace in solitude is an accusation they never asked for, because every time you decline an invitation and mean it, every time you express genuine contentment in your own company, every time you demonstrate that you don't need the constant social engagement they're killing themselves to maintain, you're holding up a mirror to their choices, and they don't like what they see. They see themselves saying yes to things they don't want to do. They see themselves maintaining friendships that drain rather than fulfill them. They see themselves posting online not because they want to share, but because they're afraid of what silence means. They see themselves accepting invitations out of obligation rather than genuine desire. And your refusal to do any of that, your calm rejection of the entire performance, forces them to confront a possibility they've been avoiding, that they have a choice too, that they could say no, that they could choose peace over performance. But that would require admitting they've been choosing their own exhaustion all along. So instead, they make you the problem. Because here's the truth they won't admit. If you can be genuinely content without them, without constant social performance, without the exhausting maintenance of connections that don't matter, their entire framework starts crumbling. Think about what they've built their lives on. The belief that human beings need extensive social connection to thrive. The belief that isolation is inherently harmful. The belief that choosing solitude over socializing is a red flag, a warning sign, a symptom of something broken. These aren't just casual opinions. These are foundational assumptions their entire social structure rests on. Every obligation they fulfill, every performance they maintain, every exhausting interaction they force themselves through is justified by these beliefs. And then you come along, genuinely happy in your solitude, and you're living proof that those beliefs might be wrong. Not wrong for everyone, but wrong as universal requirements, wrong as the only path to well-being. And if those beliefs are wrong, then what does that make all their sacrifices? What does that make all the times they said yes when they meant no? What does that make all the energy they poured into maintaining connections that never truly fulfilled them? Your existence forces them to ask questions they don't want to answer, so they silence the question by silencing you. Studies consistently show that people who choose solitude and report contentment have lower stress levels and higher life satisfaction than those maintaining extensive social networks out of obligation. But you'll never hear that framed as healthy because it threatens everything. The research exists, the data is clear. People who are comfortable with solitude, who don't feel compelled to maintain constant social engagement, who can genuinely enjoy their own company, they report better mental health outcomes across multiple metrics: lower anxiety, lower depression, better sleep, higher life satisfaction, greater sense of autonomy and self-acceptance. But this research gets buried under the louder narrative about the dangers of isolation and the necessity of social connection. Because that louder narrative serves a purpose. It keeps people compliant. It keeps them showing up to obligations they don't want. It keeps them maintaining relationships that don't serve them. It keeps them performing sociability even when it drains them. And most importantly, it keeps them from questioning whether there might be another way. Your contentment in solitude doesn't just contradict their personal choices, it contradicts an entire cultural narrative about what humans need to be happy. And that makes you more than just different, that makes you dangerous. So if you're someone who stopped posting online, who declines the weekend plans, who finds genuine peace in your own company, know this: the punishment will continue. They'll keep framing your boundaries as dysfunction. They'll keep pathologizing your contentment. The exclusion that feels like abandonment, that will keep happening. The concerned conversations behind your back, those will continue. The weaponized care that frames your peace as something that needs fixing, that's not going away. Because the system they've built their lives around requires your compliance. It requires you to admit you're wrong, to apologize for your choices, to return to the fold and validate their exhaustion by sharing it. And when you refuse to do that, when you continue choosing solitude and finding peace in it, you're not just making a personal choice, you're threatening their entire framework. So yes, the punishment continues, the interrogations, the pathologizing, the slow withdrawal of social acceptance disguised as concern for your well-being. All of it continues because your freedom threatens their captivity, and they can't let that threat go unchallenged. I know that doesn't make it hurt less. The exclusion is real. The judgment is real. When people who claimed to care about you start treating your boundaries like symptoms, when friendships dissolve because you won't perform availability on their terms, when your choice to be peacefully alone gets discussed like a concerning development that requires intervention, that pain is legitimate. This isn't about pretending it doesn't hurt. This isn't about rising above the impact or transcending the wound. The punishment lands, the exclusion stings. The realization that their care was always conditional, always dependent on your compliance with their expectations, that recognition breaks something. And I'm not going to tell you it shouldn't hurt, or that you should be strong enough to not care. That's just another way of dismissing your legitimate response to being treated unjustly. The hurt is real. The cost of choosing yourself is real, and acknowledging that cost doesn't make your choice wrong, it just makes it honest. But your solitude isn't pathology, that's freedom, and freedom always threatens systems built on everyone's captivity. Stay free, not because it's easy, the punishment is real and ongoing. Stay free because you've discovered what it means to be genuinely at peace with yourself, and no amount of forced performance can compete with that. Your contentment alone is the most dangerous thing you possess. It's dangerous because it proves their framework is optional. It's dangerous because it reveals that all the obligations they're killing themselves to fulfill might not be necessary for a good life. It's dangerous because your peace exposes their exhaustion. Your boundaries reveal their lack of them. Your refusal to perform shows them they have the same choice, and they can't forgive you for that revelation. So they'll keep punishing you. They'll keep trying to bring you back in line. They'll keep framing your freedom as dysfunction and your peace as concerning. Let them. Let them exhaust themselves trying to make you wrong while you stay whole. Let them pathologize your contentment while you continue finding genuine peace in your own company. Let them discuss you with concern while you live free of the obligations that drain them. Because at the end of the day, their punishment can only touch you if you believe their narrative, and you know better. You've tasted what freedom feels like, and no amount of disguised enforcement can make you unsee that truth.